the one, the only, Ben Sion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Just Daf It. Today we're doing Maseches Gittin, Daf Vav, number 6. Great share for you today, talking about different places outside of Eretz Yisrael that might actually be considered to be part of Eretz Yisrael. Just like if you bring a get in Eretz Yisrael, at least a short distance in Eretz Yisrael, you do not have to say Panenachtam. We'll learn today there's actually a place outside of Eretz Yisrael that is like Eretz Yisrael. And you with Ben Sion will explore the difference between seemingly the same place, but it's not really the same place. Two different places outside of Eretz Yisrael that have different halachas about Gittin, similar to Eretz Yisrael. Let's start from the bottom of Hamid Beis. The last three words. Rav Ashia and Rashi says, "Afilu kan kol musa v'kan megilsa." We said yesterday that you don't have to actually, when you're saying b'fani nechta, you don't have to actually witness the entire writing of the get, an entire signing of the get. Even if you were there for one line, we said it's the most important line of the get, the top line of the get, with the names and the city and the zman and the time that it was written, that's good enough. Rav Ashi says, even if you didn't see anything, you just heard the scratching of the quill on the parchment when they wrote the get, that's good enough. Tanya Kavasi the Rav Ashi, Rice supports Rav Ashi, maybe get Medina Sayama, Filu who buys a silver Aliyah. Even though he's on the main floor, and the scribe is in the aliyah, is in the upper floor, the attic, Huba aliyah of a sofa babayas, or he is in the attic, and the scribe who's writing the get is in the main floor. Even if you're going in and out the whole day, kosher. It's kosher. So you see, so the Gemara says, Huba babayas is sofa aliyah, halacha chazilay. They're on different floors, he didn't see him at all. He heard the kan, it's like a sound that the quill makes while it's writing on the parchment. That's good enough. So you see a conclusive proof like a Rashi. Amar Mar, the Brisa continues. I feel nechnas v'yotzei kol yom kul. If he's going in and out the whole day, kosher is kosher. Man. Ilay mashliach, the shliach, meaning the person, the agent who's saying v'fanei he's going in and out the whole day while he's writing the get. Hashta hu b'bayis v'sofer b'aliyah delo chazileh. If there are different floors, he doesn't see it at all. Amart kosher, he said it's kosher. Nichnas v'yotzim b'ay. Obviously, he's going in and out. He sees part of the get being written, and of course it's okay. Ella sofer. This must be talking about the scribe. Even the scribe is going in and out the whole day. It's kosher. Pshita. Why not? Mishum the nichnas v'yotzim nefsaline. Just because he stops to go get lunch or something like that in the middle of writing the get, we should possibly get. L'shricha the nafak l'shukah. He went to the marketplace. V'asa, and then he came back. Maybe someone else found. He found someone else with the same name as the husband and wife. And now when he came back, and he told him to write a get from me. And now he's continuing, he finishes the get for somebody else. Kamashma, we're not worried about that. Itmar, Bavel. What about Bavel? Now, Bavel is translated as Iraq nowadays. Present day Iraq is where Bavel, Babylonia, used to be. I'm not so sure about that 100%. I'll talk more about that in Enoch Ben Sion. Anyway, let's say Bavel, what everyone assumes is present-day Iraq. That's where the yeshivas used to be in the time of the Amoraim. Rav Amar, Eretz Yisrael Gittin. Rav says, if you bring from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, it's like bringing from one place in Eretz Yisrael to another place in Eretz Yisrael. You do not have to say finding out to find out. Shmuel Amar Kil Chutzlar. Shmuel says it's already it's treated like Chutzlar. It's lame b'hakam eflagi. What are they arguing? The Marsar al Fisha Bekin Lishma. V'hani Gemiri. Rav holds the reason is like Rabbah. That the reason finding Nachtam is said is because people are not careful about Lishma. And Bavel was a very learned place. All the yeshivas were there. They know. And Shmuel says because you don't have Eidim to Mekayim the Shtar. And these people, right, Bavel is not particularly close to Eretz Yisrael, so they're not going to be people that are recognized as shtaros, are recognized as signatures. So therefore, you have to say finding Nachtam to Mekayim the Shtar. But Hispra, is this really true? Harabba, just like the Rav, we concluded before that Rabbah agrees to Rabbah's reasoning. Rabbah, he has the reach of Lishma, but he also agrees in Mekayim. Like we said, everyone agrees to Rabbah. You need it to be Mekayim the Shtar. Rav Savar came on the Ikam Masifta, since there's yeshiva there, a big yeshiva in Bavel, Mishkach Shlichi. right? There's a lot of people going back and forth to the yeshiva, traveling between Eretz Yisrael and Bavel. So maybe some people say Bavel nowadays is Lakewood, Beis Medrash Gavoa over there. People traveling back and forth in BMG, Beis Medrash Gavoa, and Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, they'll always be Mekayim the Shtar. The Shmuel Savar Masifta Begir Sayu treated. Shmuel says no, they're paying. It might be people go back and forth, but in yeshiva they're learning. They're not paying attention to people's signatures, so therefore there won't be people to Mekayim the Shtar. It Barnami Amar Rabbi Abba Amar Rav Huna Asino Atzmeno Kebavel Bebavel Ke'eretz Yisrael Gittin. V'chiyasa Rav Lebal. Once Rav came to Bavel, right? Originally Shmuel lived in Bavel. He had the yeshiva in Harda. Rav came and established his own yeshiva. Once Rav came to Bavel, so now there were two big rabbis over there, and we learned in other Gemaras that Rav was bigger than Shmuel, so Bavel paskin like Rav, and Rav said that Bavel is treated like Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, people who travel from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael do not have to say B'fani Nechta, B'fani Nechta. Mezer Rav Yirmiyah. Yirmiyah asked the following question on Rav from Braizer. You don't marry Rechem the Mizrach, or Rechem the Mizrach, Ma'ashkelon, the Dara Ma'ashkelon, the Dara Ma'akol, the Safon, Ma'akol, the Safon. Right. This is part of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says it lists what are the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael in terms of, right, outside these boundaries you have to say B'fani Nechta, B'fani Nechta. So he says these places, Ashkelon is to the south, Rechem is the east, Akko is to the north, right? So those are places outside of Eretz Yisrael. Bavel, the tzvon of Eretz Yisrael Kaima. Bavel is to the north of Eretz Yisrael. I mean, Iraq is not technically just the north; it's also to the northeast of Eretz Yisrael. But I guess you could say it's the north. Hashem says in the Navi. He says in Yirmiyah, from the north, the bad will spring forth. V'stan Remeir Omer, Akko Eretz Yisrael Gittin. Remeir in the Mishnah says Akko is there like Eretz Yisrael Gittin. It's not considered north of Eretz Yisrael. It's considered part of Eretz Yisrael. I feel Remeir, Loka Amar Elaba Akko, and the Mikro. Even Remeir who agrees that Akko is part of Eretz Yisrael. That's because it's close. And Bavel, which is, let's say, present-day Iraq, in Baghdad, let's say the capital, the Merkah, which is far away, low. So how could anyone say that Bavel, we bring from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, is good? You don't have to say B'fani Nechta, B'fani Nechta. Who Moshilam Farel? He asked the question, he answered it himself. Levarmi Bavel, right? Our Mishnah was talking about anywhere else besides Bavel. Right? Bavel is unique, like we said before. They have Talmidim that go back and forth. Arechani Bavel. What's considered halachically Bavel, at least in regards to Gittin? Amar of Papak Machlokes the Yochsin. Kach machlokes the Gittin. We have machlokes in Maseches Kedusha. Comes to lineage, right? Questionable lineage. Places, Bavel was considered, right, the place where there's the least question of lineage, right? We never know where a family really came from, even if you'll say his parents are Jewish, his grandparents are Jewish, but you have to check his lineage. In Bavel, you don't have to check. And the Gemara says Bavel is even more trustworthy than Eretz Yisrael. So what are the boundaries of Bavel? So Machlokes is over there, what the boundaries are. So whatever the boundaries are there, the boundaries are here, according to Rav Papa. Rav Yosef or Machlokes is Yochsen, Aval Gittin, they're about Yosef. Al Gittin, they were called Arba Tinyana de Gishra. Machlokes by Yochsen. Gittin were more makel that until the second willow bush, I'm translating according to the art scroll, of the bridge, which is near the Euphrates, right? The Tigris and the Euphrates passed through Iraq. So up until that point, even though it's not kosher for Yochsen, according to one opinion, for Gittin, it is considered part of Bavel. Rav Chisda Masrich Ma'aktisfon lebei Ardashir, bei Ardashir la'aktisfon, lo Masrich. Let's say you're traveling in one place in Bavel to another place in Bavel, just like traveling one place in Eretz Yisrael to another place in Eretz Yisrael, right? According to some opinions, if it's not, you're not traveling so far, not from one district to another district, you wouldn't need to, right? So if they went from Bei Ardashir, which is a certain town where they had a lot of markets over there, it was a lot of stores, strip malls, let's say, L'Aktisfon, so you wouldn't need it to say B'fani Nechta. However, if you went from Aktisfon to Bei Ardashir, you would. So what's the explanation? He holds that he must have held the reason you say B'fani Nechta is people are not Baki and Lishma. And therefore, when you go from Aktisfon to Bei Ardashir, Aktisfon was not knowledgeable in Hilchos Gittin so much. Bayard the Shir was. The Gemara says, Tispra, is this the explanation? My Rabba, yes, like the Rabba. Everyone agrees on Rabba. The reason is Eidim Mitzvah the Kaima. That's what we're really worried about. Everyone agrees. The reason, one of the reasons you need to say is because of Kiyum Shtarlos. V'hani, validating the Shtar. V'hani Kevan, the Azi L'Shuka, L'Hasam, Hanach Yadi B'Chasimus Yada Dahani. Since the people from Aktisphon had a marketplace over there. So if you go from Bay Ardashir to Aktisphon, so therefore there's people in the marketplace that are familiar with the signatures. Kevan Azi L'Shukal L'Hasam, Hani Yadi B'Chasimus Yada, Dahani, V'Hani B'Hanach. V'Hadi B'Hanach Lo Yadi. My time, B'Shukayu Tridi. However, the people from Aktisphon, when they go to Bay Ardashir, right, and they don't know. The people from Aktisphon, right? The people from Bnei Ardashir, the marketplace is in Aktisphon. So the marketplace is in Aktisphon, and they're shopping over there. So they're familiar with, they meet people, they recognize signatures. So when it comes back to their home, so they know. However, when you come from the opposite direction, so the people in Aktisphon were selling, and when they're selling, they're not familiar with signatures, they're too busy selling. So therefore, when you travel from Aktisphon to Beit Ardashir, right, the people from Aktisphon are not eligible to signatures. You go to Beit Ardashir, they're not going to be familiar with the signatures. Rabba Ravu Matzrach Me'ersa Le'ersa. Rabbi Ravu was machmir. He needed, even if you went from apparently one block in the neighborhood across the street, basically this is throwing it as a chumrah, obviously. This is not something which is the Mishnah said you don't have to. One across the street, you still have to say Rav Sheshes Matzah Mashkun L'Shkun. Rav Sheshes is the one on Mekel. He says only from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. Rabba Matzrach B'Osa Shkun. Rabba sort of a compromise between the two, not from across the street, but if it's in one neighborhood, one end of the neighborhood to the other end of the neighborhood, then you would need to say B'Fani Nechta, B'Fani Nechta. But Rava says the reason because the Eidim Mekayim it. So why should he be Mekel over here? This is talking about, I believe it's talking about Chutz La'aretz. It's talking about not Bavel, not Eretz Yisrael. So it's not a Chumrah, like I said before. The question is, in Chutz La'aretz, how far do you have to travel? So, Rava says, from one end of the neighborhood to the other end of the neighborhood. So, how is that okay? I'm sorry. I'm a little confused over here. Rava says, if you want to travel from one end of the neighborhood to the other end of the neighborhood, that's okay. How is he Mekel over? How is he allowed to do that? Maybe you should be machmir, like the first opinion, to go across the street because people are not familiar. So the Gemara says, Shaini be Mechuzah the Naidi. Rava lived in a place called Mechuzah. Mechuzah, the people traveled around a lot. They walked around, they traveled. So even if you go from one end of the neighborhood to the other end of the neighborhood, people who are familiar with the signatures, you would not need. Rav Chanin, but he was only talking about Mechuzah. Other places, even one end of the neighborhood to the other end of the neighborhood, he would need. Rav Chanin Mishdai, Rav Kahana. I see Gita of Yadana, Ibisrul and a Harda and a Harda Lasura. Rav Chanin was talking to Rav Kahana. They brought a get. While they were talking, they brought a get. And he said, I don't know if it was brought from Surah to Naharda. There are two places in Bavel, or Naharda to Surah. I was talking about the Rav. He came in front of Rav. I'm going to say, Sarichna, Lememar, Fani Nechta, Fani Nechta, Olo. Do I have to say Fani Nechta, Fani Nechta, or not? Sarichna. Lo Sarichna. I'm going to say, Lo Sarichna. He says, you don't have to say that, even though it was two different places, but they were in Bavel. You don't have to say it. V'i, top of Oma Beis, V'i Avat Ahanis. If you did say B'fani Nechta, B'fani Nechta, so it's valid, it works. What does that mean? Right? Even though sometimes we say you don't have to say if you do say it, it helps, right? Because basically we said before, b'fani nechtam, really the worried, according to Rabba and Rava, we're always worried about kiyum shtaros. That what are we worried about? If you don't verify the signatures, so the Baal is going to change his mind and he'll bring Adam and say it wasn't a valid get. So by having one person be Makayim the shtar, right? We relied on one person. Apparently, the Gemara is being Machadish over here. I didn't know this until now, but if the Baal would come, even with two Adam, because you had one person who said Fani Nechtam, the Rabbanan relied on that to disqualify Adam that came after. The Baal can no longer protest. So here also, even though sometimes you don't have to say Fani Nechtam, they said if you do say it, it works, that if the husband were to come and protest, it wouldn't help. Kedusanya, like we learned in our Brisa, Ma'asav Adam Echad Shehevi Get Lifnei Rabbi Shmuel. He brought a get in front of Rabbi Shmuel. Amar lo tzarich ani lomer Fani Nechtam o eno tzarich. Do I have to say it or not? Amar lo b'ni mehechanata. Where are you from? Amar lo Rabbi Mikfar Sisai ani. There's a place in Eretz Yisrael. I'm from a village of Sisai. Amar lo tzarich ata lomer Fani Nechtam shlo tizakik le'edem. You see, you have to say it. Why? So that you shouldn't need Adam afterwards, right? Because if the Baal, the husband, comes and tries to disprove it, you would need Adam to disprove his Adam. So therefore, if you say Fani Nechtam, you preempt the need for other Adam to come. The husband can no longer protest. After he left the presence of Rabbi Shmuel, Nicholas Lefanav Rabbi Eli came in front of him. Arlo Rabbi, V'halok Farsi Sai move last between Eretz Yisrael. He would contest what Rabbi Shmuel said. Isn't Farsi Sai part of Eretz Yisrael? The Krova L'Tzipuri Yosem Akko. It's closer to Tzipuri more than Akko. It's within the boundary of Eretz Yisrael. According to Psan Meir, Omer Akko Eretz Yisrael Gittin. Meir, even Meir says Akko is like Eretz Yisrael Gittin. And certainly Tzipori and Farsi Sai are closer. I feel a Rabbanim lo pligi eladar Meir elab Akko. The Merchuka. Akko, which is to the north, which is considered far away, about Farsi Sai, the Mikra below. Everyone would agree that Farsi Sai is incorporated in Eretz Yisrael. Amrlo shtok mini shtok. He said, "Be quiet." Yatsa davar beheder yatsa. Since it came out something permissible from it, keep it permissible. So, basically, what he was saying that you would need it. According to Rabbi Eli, it seems that Rabbi Shmuel was wrong, and you would need it. So the Gemara answer is no. Ha yunami shall dizaki le'edim kamarle. Lo simua kamei. He also, the reason he right, so Rabbi Eli replied to him that technically it wasn't necessary, but since Yatsa Davar Beheter, since they got a heter from this, that if the Baal would come into Ma'arer, and brothers, it wouldn't help, so leave it as it is. It was actually a good thing. So the Gemara questions, Rabbi Eli, did he do more than Rabbi Shmuel? Rabbi Shmuel also said, Hi, Iunami shall Zaki Leidim Kamarle. Rabbi Shmuel also didn't necessitate it. He just said that it would be beneficial because the husband can no longer protest. So the Gemara says, Lo Simu Kameh. When they told the story to Rabbi Eli, they didn't finish off that Rabbi Shmuel said the reason that it's not necessary according to Rabbi Shmuel, but it's Shalot Zaki Leidim, that you shouldn't need Eidim in the future. That's all he meant to say. Shalach Rabbi Yasser Rav Chisda. Rav Yasser said to Rav Chisda, Gittin aboy misham lakan in sarich lomer fani nechtam. Gittin which come from Sham, from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. You don't have to say fani nechtam. Lema kasar l'fisha im bekin lishma. Must be the reason because that you have to say fani nechtam because people are not knowledgeable of Hilchot Lishma. V'hani gemiri in Bavel they are knowledgeable. But Tispera, is this true? How Rabba? You say the Rabba. You can't say that's the reason. Rabba agrees. You also have to worry about Rava about Eidim Mitzuyim Lakaimo. Everyone agrees there's a necessity to worry about Kiyam Shtaros. There's a lot of people who travel between Bavel and Eretz Yisrael, so therefore there will always be people in Mekayim the Shtar. Rav Yosef, how can we rely on Rav Yosef? How do we know he's reliable? The Ode. Another proof that he's not reliable. Either Shalach Le Rav Yudah, Bnei Adam Ha'olim Misham Lekan Hein Kimo Ba'atzma V'yitno Yela Bezona V'Yaldam Machru B'Yayim V'Yishtu. Kosev Le Below Sirtu. Rav Yosar sent to Rav Yehuda. He asked him, people who come from Sham Lekan, who travel from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, it's like they gave their child to a prostitute, and their daughter they sold for wine, and they drank the wine. The Kotzev Lei, when Rabbi Yossi heard about this, he wrote this pasuk down to remember it below Sirtut. You're not allowed to write down words of Tanakh without writing them on a Sefer Torah. You have to write, you score the line underneath. You can write 2 words without scoring it, but 3 words you have to score. And he wrote this whole pasuk. Masisa Tana, on a tangent, the Brisa says Shalosh Kosvin, Arbain Kosvin. Technically, 3 words you can write without scoring. 4 you can't. Amalei Abaye. So Rabbi Yossi didn't know about this halacha. How can we rely on it? Amalei Abaye. Ata kol loyada hadar Rabbi Yitzchak lav gavra rabu. Anyone who doesn't know the teacher of Rabbi Yitzchak is not considered a great man. Bishlama milsa detalia b'svara lachai. If it was something that was logical, and he had false reasoning, so it proves that he's not such a knowledgeable person. Ha Gemara he. This is merely a tradition. The Gemara lo shmila. He never heard about it. He's not at fault for that. The further proof that Rabbi Yossi was someone special. Rabbi Yossi who to ask him Mari al Yadi Hashem. We see from this coming story, he agreed to Rabbi Yossi. When it comes to the parsha of Pilegesh Begiva, this is a story at the end of Sefer Shoftim. A man who had a Pilegesh, he got angry at her. She ran away. It eventually led to a civil war in Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Yossi Amar, what caused her to run away from her husband? As it says, Zvuv Matzala. He found a fly in his soup. That's why he got angry at her and she left. Rabbi Yonasan Amar Nima Matzala. He found a hair. Rabbi Yossi found Eliyahu. Amalei, my covenant HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's asking, what is Hashem doing now? Amalei asking with Pilegesh Begiva. Hashem is now he's delving into the story of Pilegesh Begiva. Well, my Kamar, what is he saying? Amalei, he said to him, Rabbi Yossi b'ni Kacha Omer. Rabbi Yossi says, well, the reason was the hair. Yonasan b'ni Kacha Omer. Yonasan says it was because, Rabbi Yossi says because of the fly. Yonasan says it was because of the hair. Amar the Chas v'Shalom. So when if you heard that, if you also heard this, Chas v'Shalom Mika Sveika Kamishmai. We people have machlokas. Does Hashem have machlokas? Amar like Elav Elav Divrei Elokim Chayim. It's possible that both opinions are right. It's Vuv Matzah v'lo Hikbit. Nima Matzah v'Hikbit. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back. First he found a fly in his soup, and he wasn't so angry. Nima Matzah v'Hikbit. Then he also found a hair. And then he got angry. Amar Rav Yehuda Zuv Bakara, he found a fly in his pot of soup. Venima ba'oso makom. The hair, he didn't find it in the soup. He found that she hadn't shaved her pubic hair, and therefore it hurt him during marital relations. Zvuv miusta, venima sakata. The zvuv was disgusting for him, and the hair and the pubic hair was sakana because it could have injured his organ. Some say both were found in the pot of soup. Zvuv onsa. He wasn't as angry about the fly because it's hard. You can't control a fly going in someone's soup. Venima pshus, however, hair should have been more careful to warn a hairnet or something that hair shouldn't have got in there. A person should never make his household too fearful. Why did she run away? Because the wife was afraid of her husband. It eventually led to a civil war, and so many people in Klal Yisrael died. Anyone who causes excessive fear in his house, eventually he'll come with 3 averos. Right, Gilei Arayis, his wife who's a nida, and the water is cold on Shabbos, or cold, and she's not going to get told in the mikvah, and she'll say she did. Chil Shabbos, Shvichas Damim, like the story of Pilegesh Begiva. Chil Shabbos, right? She's not going to tell him that she cooked on Shabbos by accident or not, and or that she's not going to tell him that she's going to be afraid to tell him what happened in the house, and she'll be forced to Machal Shabbos. Because did you turn the light on? You didn't turn the light on. She'll be afraid of him. She'll turn the light on Shabbos. That which the rabbi said in Masechah Shabbos, right before Shabbos, is supposed to say 3 things. You start them, prepare for Shabbos. Did you take Shuas HaMaishos off? Because now I take Shuas HaMaishos on Shabbos. A Ravtem, did you make Erevei Chatzeros? You can't make that on Shabbos. It's necessary to carry outside your house. Hey, Ligos Haner, did you light the Shabbos candle? Sarich, he said about these 3 things. Sarich, top of Zayin and Aleph, the Mereno v'Nechusa. Kechid l'kablu minei. He should say it in a nice way, not in a way that's fearful, that makes his wife afraid of him. Say it in a nice way to show that even if she didn't do it, that he's not angry at her, and she'll now do it. Otherwise, the woman is going to be fearful of her husband. I never heard of this teaching that you're supposed to say it in a nice, calm way. However, I accepted to do this logically. It made sense to me that I shouldn't make my wife too fearful. Otherwise, it's going to lead to problems in the house. That's the conclusion of today's share. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Sion, where the Gemara seemingly gives two different reasons about Bavel. Why in Bavel, Tarot to Israel, you don't need to say V'ani Nechta. Why are there two different reasons in the Gemara? And the Gemara doesn't even note that there are two different reasons. I'll try to answer this based on Machlokas Tosas and Rashi, Masechah Shabbos, Ian with Ben Sion, coming up next.